Hi, welcome to a new episode of CritterSnap. So we are still a bunch of biologists who really like nature photography. I'm Daniel Zarek. We have Alberto Lopez here in Ithaca, David Deneau also in Ithaca, Søren Franzenburg in somewhere in Germany, and myself in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And today our topics will be that weasel that's riding a woodpecker that's been all over the internet lately, and then a also cool shot of a bird that Alberto did, and his kind of making of that photo. And then we're gonna go into a discussion about DSLR cameras versus mirrorless cameras, because we kind of have an even split between users of DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, and we all are more or less experienced with both sides, and so we're not going to start a big flame war about what's better or so on, and but we're going to discuss what the strengths are and in what situation we would use what, and so on. But first, let's talk about that weasel. So there was this photo by a amateur photographer, apparently, named Martin LeMay in London, who took this incredible snapshot of a weasel riding a woodpecker. And so lots of people, especially in the very beginning when that was posted, were wondering if that was real or or fake, like a Photoshop, or if it was staged. There are lots of staged nature photos that get lots of views online. But this one turned out pretty quickly to be the real deal, especially because not just that photo was posted, but also the aftermath, and like a few different perspectives and so on. So what did you guys think of that when you saw it?
So I think beyond the fact that, okay, people were really wondering if it was staged, and I think we decided that soon we will talk about this matter in another episode. I think this picture was, for me, striking in how it was viral, despite the fact that it was not that great technically. So if you zoom on it, it's not sharp. There are many problems out of it. But still, the shot, the story that is behind it is really the strength of the shot, and it should remind us that at the end, why we take a picture is to tell a story rather than only, or at least as a biologist, not only the technical aspect. And often I know myself, if it's not sharp, I trash, which is probably sometimes a mistake when you have something like that. And that's a good example.
Yeah. I mean, and even for non-biologists, I mean, really for every picture, I think, should have a story that's just the truth. I mean, it just makes your picture much more powerful if you have a great story behind it, like this one. To talk a little bit about what's happening there, biologically speaking, I guess it's a pretty interesting thing that's happening. It's this baby weasel, I guess, learning how to hunt. It's not that this woodpecker is a giant woodpecker. No, that's in fact a baby weasel trying to predate, trying to hunt and capture this woodpecker that was much bigger than he was, and he tagged along for a short ride apparently. And now he's famous all around the world, basically. It's pretty amazing. Talk about being at the right place at the right time, which for nature photography,
Absolutely.
there is a lot of that. You know, you do have to be at the right place at the right time. But that being said, if you know a lot about your subject, I guess there's more probability of being at the right place at the right time. You know where to find these different animals, and even in my case, I guess I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time too. Not as of an impressive picture like the woodpecker picture, but it's still, I mean, being able to take that sort of picture of this natural interaction of predator and prey, to me it's one of my favorite pictures to take, but it's also one of the hardest ones. And actually just recently, one of my pictures, let's see if the screen share works out for me. One of these pictures I took of portraying this behavior of predator and prey was published on the Audubon website, which was pretty awesome. You know, it's awesome
can
to
you,
see.
what exactly is Audubon for those who don't know?
Audubon is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to the conservation of birds, basically. So basically, it gets lots of traffic from bird watchers. For example, this is like the organization, number one organization, or one of the biggest organizations in the world that has to do with bird conservation. And they do, for example, the famous Audubon Christmas bird count, which is where people all over the world count birds on the same day, which is a pretty awesome thing. To me, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty awesome to see your picture online, and it was a picture of just that. It's a picture of a predator with its prey, and that's an American kestrel, and it's eating a green iguana. Which that event by itself, I took that in Puerto Rico, and it's actually I'm glad to see that it ended up being a good picture. But even if that picture would have been blurry, it still would have had value, especially to me, because I actually do research. I did lots of research with green iguanas, and there's very little known about the natural predators of the green iguana in Puerto Rico, where it is an invasive species, and it's been causing basically lots of discussions whether it's been affecting other species, native species locally on the island. And this picture right here, I guess, shows that it does have predators in Puerto Rico. The American kestrel is a native species to Puerto Rico, although that little iguana is a baby iguana.
It's not a giant kestrel?
And that's not a giant kestrel, exactly. And what we have been seeing, and I guess part of the research that I've been doing and the observations I've made, is that these iguanas, they're mostly taken by predators when they're young, when they're babies, basically. They're juveniles. But once they reach adult size, there are not too many predators that could actually take down a green iguana, at least in Puerto Rico. And in South America, Central America, I mean, there's jaguars and there are other big mammals, but not in Puerto Rico. But still, so this event that I was able to capture was pretty significant, and being able to documenting such an event, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, what was the situation there?
So I was walking along the field in the Guanaca forest, which is a dry forest, and I guess I was lucky enough to that I was carrying, I guess, my my DSLR with me, because lots of times I do know that you do have to carry your camera with you all the time, because it's more likely that you'll be able to capture moments like that. But it does get heavy, and when you're in the field, you're carrying all your field equipment also. So you think twice about it. And this time, I'm happy to say, I sometimes I feel I have this curse that when I bring the camera, I don't see these sort of things. That day, I had my camera. I was able to capture it, and it was awesome. And it was in a dry forest, and it wasn't easy to carry all that heavy equipment, plus a DSLR. In that time, I guess I was using a Canon 40D, and I was using my 400mm f5.6 Canon lens. So I'm using a telephoto lens that was a handheld shot. I wasn't using a tripod, which is what I do lots of times when I'm trekking in the field, again, to doing research and at the same time doing photography, which is something kind of tough to juggle sometimes because of the limitations. Because it's not easy to carry all that equipment plus all the other equipment that you have to carry into the field.
Yeah,
so,
and you want to take it all, because there's like a
certain
certain amount of stuff that you really have to take, because it's what you do your research with. But then, yeah, as you say, like you don't want to just take one lens.
I know.
And
you want to just
happen,
be there.
right?
If there's like a cool bug sitting around somewhere, then you don't want to only have your 400mm there.
And that's why now I've taken to starting to use more and more micro four thirds cameras, which I never be doing, but I have to say it depends on, I guess, where I'm going and the difficulty of the terrain and things like that. But I have to say that I definitely have been using more and more my wife's camera. But I just borrow it, and I go out to the field a lot, especially for macro photography.
So what is your wife's camera that you borrow?
I bought her for her birthday, but she does use it. You know, it's not like she does not use it. But it's an Olympus OMD EM5, the first version, not the second version. And I've been using it a lot as a companion to do macro photography shots. For birds, I would not feel confident taking pictures with a micro four thirds camera at this point. But
Why?
for macro,
why is that, Alberto?
why? Oh well.
Yeah.
First, I feel like that there's no lens out there that I guess will give me the same type of performance that I can get from a DSLR. Focus tracking also, I believe, isn't as good as with a DSLR. But for portraits and macro shots, I think micro four thirds and other mirrorless format cameras are great. I mean, they're great tools, and I guess you should, when you're a photographer, or even in any other type of job, you should take the best tools for the job that you have in front of you. And in many cases, I for example, go into a cave, which is very tight spaces, and again, I don't want to be carrying all these, heavy equipment. So micro four thirds camera has enabled me, I guess, to take good quality photography equipment into hard to reach places that I guess that I wouldn't lug around all that heavy stuff. So that's been great.
Right.
Do you know about, so it just occurred to me now that you were saying about different places that are difficult to reach with DSLR. Do you know any example of photography underwater with DSLR? Like really, are the cases less expensive and it makes the whole thing less expensive, or do you have
underwater photography? Well, I mean, there's lots of underwater photography. That's definitely not my expertise, but I do know that lots of professional underwater photographers. I mean, there are cases for DSLRs. It's not that it's limited for small, compact, or mirrorless cameras. And
but it becomes really expensive.
Oh, it is really expensive. Underwater photography, I mean, think about it. You have to pay a whole bunch of money for the camera, and in which case a professional would probably go out there with a full-size DSLR, like a 5D Mark III, and then they would have to buy a case to keep that camera safe underwater, and that case also runs in the thousands of dollars. Yeah.
And even for the more compact cameras, like the micro four thirds ones, the underwater cases are very expensive. They're more. They cost more than the cameras do. So,
but underwater,
I don't think any of us really does underwater photography.
No, it just occurred now. It just that about. I mean, in general, if you actually have seen that. Speaking about bringing a camera in an awkward place.
Remember, underwater, the cameras, the equipment don't weigh as much. So I don't think that the weight is not
medium format.
For me, it was more a matter for the price.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I have friends that do underwater photography at really good level, and they use DSLRs. That's, I guess, as far as I go. And I'm pretty sure that most professionals also use DSLRs for underwater photography at this point. Yeah.
Okay. How about we talk about something that we know something about?
I agree.
So, David, what's your setup right now? Just so we get everyone
So I mostly shot with a Canon 5D Mark III.
Mm-hmm.
And then
so it's a full-frame DSLR.
That's right. I have different lenses. I do a lot of macro photography, where I can have the MP65 with the very dedicated macro photography lens, and otherwise for just a normal ratio of 1:1, I have the 100 macro, but the professional version. And otherwise, I have for birds, I use the 100. No, sorry, the 400 f5.6. So that's are the lenses that I use the most.
Yeah.
For my photography, and I don't use Micro Four Third at all.
Or other like mirrorless cameras. I know you bought the Canon whatever that thing was called. So Canon brought out like an experiment in mirrorless cameras that David couldn't resist buying.
Yeah, it was really cheap.
But then never used it.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I still prefer having because it's a mirrorless camera that I have with a pancake lens, and the idea was to carry it always with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for a bunch of time, and I was never really completely happy about the pictures. So at the end, I just bought this. So for doing this, and actually at the end, I end up carrying my 5D fairly often. Even it's a big piece, but
really,
with this,
what, you just put that in your coat pocket?
Well, no, I use this small. I guess I can show you that. I use this small Levo Pro bag, and it's not like for a mirrorless camera, but it's still fairly small.
That's pretty compact, yeah.
Yeah, it fits in it with this. So I have this.
So what's that lens?
40. That's the 40 micrometer Canon 2.8, and I mean it's really small. And then it fits, and actually I'm extremely happy with it. It's not too heavy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I won't switch to mirrorless camera is that I really like the feeling of a big camera, of having it in hand. You were pointing this in another show earlier that you like having something that you can really carry, and that the bottom are really stiff and out there. So yeah, that's what I like with this camera.
Yeah.
That's my big argument, I would think, of why not going to Micro Four Third at the end.
Is it that you can just use the tiniest lens available for that system and then just only use that one?
Oh no, what do you mean? No.
For the full frame. Okay. Well, we'll come back to that. Now I'm gonna switch over to Søren. So Søren's talked a lot about his setup in the episode. Well, maybe, anyway, like in a different episode. But let's quickly go over what you're using at the moment. Oh, your microphone appears to be off, Søren. All right, then I'm just going to take over until he fixes that. So I'm using Micro Four Thirds pretty much exclusively, and I do a lot of video in my work, so I'm tending to fall more on the Panasonic side of things, and because they have better video modes than the other Micro Four Thirds cameras, and I like it, especially because, so what David said, you can have a full frame body and put a small lens on it, which makes it relatively compact. But then usually the lenses are just by physical necessity, they're gonna be bigger than for a smaller sensor. And if you get the equivalent lens for a smaller sensor, will always be smaller than for full frame. So you can, in the end, you can fit more stuff in your bag, and for fieldwork that's kind of nice. That's why I like it. One of the reasons I like it. So right now I'm using the Panasonic GH4 most of the time.
Even for the studio, when you would do things in studio, you prefer using mirrorless camera?
I actually do. I mean, it's not like I have anything against full frame. It's just the full frame camera. No, actually, we have a DSLR at work that is an APS-C sensor, so it's not it's not full frame, but it's a bit bigger. The thing with that one is that it's just it's I can't remember what it is. It is a Nikon. And it's a great camera. It just doesn't have well, it doesn't do good video is one thing. And for photography in studio, what I like about the GH4 is that it has a really fast processor in it, which means it has a really high burst rate. So it shoots 12 raw pictures a second. And you can, and I work with animals that are usually not slowed down in any way, and like with jumping spiders and so on, that are really agile, and you want to have a really high frame rate to get a sharp shot of them as they're moving around. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like it. The other reason is that a smaller sensor means you get a larger depth of field. Yeah. So small cameras or mirrorless, at least I shouldn't say mirrorless, because there are full frame mirrorless cameras, obviously, as anyone, like the Sony A7 and so on, but just the smaller sensors give you a larger depth of field, which people often knock as a disadvantage. They say like, oh, there's not enough bokeh and out of field nice background blur, which is true. You have to work harder to get that in Micro Four Thirds. The good thing, though, if you're doing macro, is that you want to have a really large depth of field, and a small sensor gives me that, and I'm willing to take that trade-off against slightly higher resolution.
Yeah, and, that's really something we discuss regularly, especially with Alberto. Which one do you want? Do you want right now? That's if you would have to buy a new camera, would you take a full frame, or would you take, for example, the apparently fantastic new 7D in Canon Mark II, which actually give great shots, but it's an APS sensor. So
okay, yeah. Let's just do like a really quick break to fix CERN's microphone, and then pick right back up. And it looks like we fixed CERN's microphone problems.
Great.
All right. So
good. Yeah, well, I used Micro Four Thirds system. Like Alberto, I used the EM5 from Olympus with a nice collection of lenses. And I agree that for birding, it is not #1 choice at the moment, but the system is growing, and there is a 300mm f4 Pro lens announced, so that might change a bit in the future. But, well, let's talk about technical differences between the two systems. The biggest one that comes to my mind is optical viewfinder versus electronic viewfinder. And yeah, electronic viewfinder is getting better and better, and I'm curious to see what the future will bring us. I greatly enjoy using electronic viewfinder for macro photography, because you actually can have the magnified view in the viewfinder, or you can check your images that you took in the viewfinder, which is better when you are in bright sunlight and you can't see anything on the display. And then I really enjoy checking my pictures in the viewfinder. That's not a big deal for me. What about you?
I think this is a good point, actually. The only thing is, what about the battery? Because the autonomy, or the length of the battery, I think, is also something that is limiting if you would have the electronic viewfinder and DSLR, don't you think?
So you think having an electronic viewfinder means that the battery life is shorter?
Yeah, way more. Yeah, a big advantage with DSLR that.
I'm not sure if that's true. I think. Do you mean like if you have the screen on the back, or the eyepiece viewfinder?
No, the eyepiece, I guess. I don't know. I'm asking actually.
So what I've noticed is I haven't had the GH4 for long enough to really see a difference in that, but on the Panasonic GX7, which I've been using before that as my main camera, there was a massive difference in battery life between having the LCD switched on versus just the eyepiece viewfinder.
Yeah.
And like almost twice as long in terms of battery life. But that camera was terrible in terms of battery life to begin with, so who knows? Maybe I'm not sure if that makes, if you keep it to the eyepiece, if that makes a huge difference to a DSLR, because it's kind of hard to compare, because DSLRs usually have much bigger batteries anyway. So
yeah, I mean, my experience, I have to say that, yeah, I mean, for sure, if you have an LCD screen on all the time, that's going to suck up the battery really quick. And having used both DSLR and a mirrorless camera to do macro photography, I miss having the electronic viewfinder. I really don't care that much the battery. It's never been an issue with me not having enough battery to take a picture so far. I mean, you also carry a second battery just in case. There are
When you're
lots
at
of
home,
advantages.
yes. When you're
Well,
at
no,
home,
when
it's
I
true.
go,
But if you go
when I go
in the
to the
field for
field,
several days,
no, when I go to the field, I carry an extra battery.
Oh yeah, of
I,
course.
I have to, well, I carry an extra
I always
battery to
do
the
that.
field, and you know, so far I haven't had any issues. Still, I have to say, I mean, I don't 100% trust. Um, uh, I guess I don't know if I could get exactly the same results with a mirrorless and with a DSLR. Like, I don't trust it that much because with my DSLR, like, I have all the flash equipment that goes with it, and I know it much better. So I don't, like, if I would have to go and take a picture that is like I have to take it, I cannot miss it, I would take a DSLR, which is funny. But when I'm using the DSLR, I feel like I want to have lots of the things that the mirrorless has anyways.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Fuji, for example, they've done something pretty impressive. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of cat pattern issues. I don't know. Which is quite impressive. Is having both a electronic viewfinder and a regular viewfinder,
Right,
an optical
yeah.
viewfinder, a combination of both. That to me, I mean,
So
that
do
would be
they
just amazing.
do you know if they still have that in their current like interchangeable lens cameras? I feel like they only
Ah,
No, no, it's
I
only the
don't
fixed lens.
yeah,
The
it's only in
they don't
X100
have that anymore. Oh,
on
or
the
and the X Pro
X100.
1 thing, and the X Pro 1, which does not have a successor yet, I guess.
Oh,
so the
right.
so the new one, the what is it, XT something? That doesn't have it.
The
Oh,
the Fuji
Does not
X-T1
think so.
does not have optical and electronic,
okay.
but the X Pro 1 does use interchangeable lenses,
Yeah. That
and
that one's pretty long in the tooth now, though, I think. Well,
yeah,
I don't
that's
know
an
if
old camera.
I've never tried that one. I had it in my hand once when it came out, when I was in the market for a new camera, and then kind of decided against it. But yeah, that was when was it? Like 3 years ago at least. Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, battery life can be an issue, but I think there's so much variation between cameras that I think that it's probably hard to say
maybe just I
it's
was
a
mentioning that.
DSLR or mirrorless thing. I had an old mirrorless, like my first mirrorless was a Panasonic GF1, and that thing that didn't even have a viewfinder, and the battery just lasted ridiculously long. I don't know why. I think maybe just because it didn't have all the bells and whistles that the new ones have. But I took that on a 5-day trip to Canada and took one spare battery with me, and I took a lot of video too, which usually sucks the battery dry right away. And I came back like the first battery was done at like day 4, so it was kind of crazy. That definitely doesn't happen anymore. But
Yeah, I agree. I think battery isn't a big issue. I think the big issue with electronic viewfinders, I think, is the lag. I guess not all electronic viewfinders are created equal.
yeah,
Some don't have resolution as high as others, and some have more lag than others. And if you're doing action sports photography, wildlife photography, birds, for example, that little bit of lag on your electronic viewfinder, that could be very troublesome. That's
yeah,
something that you would not like to experience.
Yeah, you would not do bird in flight with a mirrorless camera and
yeah,
with a electronic viewfinders.
yeah.
At this point, no. I mean, I'm rooting for them. I mean, I have to say honestly, where I've been seeing many innovations in the photography industry. I think it's coming more from the mirrorless sector than
Oh yeah, that's
DSLRs.
there's
So
no
I'm
question.
rooting. I hope. right now that's yes, that's true. You can't. It's not the best way to do bird photography with a mirrorless camera. But man, I really do hope that they get to that point because I think it's going to be an advantage for everyone in the end.
Yeah. So I think the GH4 that I'm using right now, I'm not doing any bird photography. I haven't tried it at least, but at least in tests, that one came out pretty. Well, it didn't look bad against the DSLR in terms of like continuous focus tracking, but that's probably because they have the equivalent of like a supercomputer kind of chip in there. So it's like it's really fast in any respect. So maybe that's just like it's gonna be the upper tier, like the highest price tier of mirrorless cameras that are gonna get there sooner than later. We'll see. But I think I also definitely agree that the innovation is happening in that market right now, and not by Canon or Nikon. And also the how much they embrace video as like a modality that these cameras can do. Like the new Sony, the A7S I hear is amazing for video. The GH4 is like the Panasonic GH4 has like really become the go-to tool for like indie movie filmers and so on, because it's just gives you everything in a pretty cheap package compared to anything else. Mm-hmm. And that you don't really see that in the Nikons and Canons of the world to the same degree, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I think it's a win-win situation. I think it pushes everyone forward, basically, and in the end, we get the best, the coolest cameras, and our pockets are more and more empty, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, believe me, like I've been tempted to. I mean, I'm starting to go out with the field into the field more and more with a mirrorless camera. I'm gonna have to buy another camera because I'm using my wife's camera, and I'm gonna have to have one for myself because it's convenient. I'm gonna experiment with this more. I'm gonna go to the Dominican Republic this week, and I'm going to have my telephoto lens on DSLR to take pictures of birds, and instead of carrying another DSLR, which I don't have, I have a 7D. I don't have another camera. I'm going to borrow my wife's camera which is a Micro Four Thirds camera with that Olympus 60mm macro lens that both Daniel and Soren have. That's going to be on that mirrorless camera, and that's going to be my go-to camera if something shows up while I'm exploring out in the field. I have something ready to go to take macro shots instead of having to switch my lenses. And the possibility of introducing dust and stuff into the sensor of the DSLR gets reduced. Yeah. So it's a win-win. And for now, in good lighting conditions, I've definitely been able to get good macro shots with that combo, that DSLR mirrorless camera combo.
Nice. All right.
Okay, I think we can all agree that exciting times are ahead in the mirrorless sector. Pushing each generation of cameras gets better, and all the weaknesses are disappearing step by step, I would say.
Yeah, they're really getting mature now, and that's a great thing to see.
That was really, really slow, and when I see where the autofocus is now, it's pretty incredible.
Sorry, I talked over you. Which one was slow and which one was fast?
The EP1, the first pen camera, that was really, really slow.
Yeah, yeah.
They've come a long way. When I use it now, it's lightning fast compared to that.
Yeah, I mean, and DSLRs slowly, they've been, like, I've been seeing more DSLRs, like the Canon 7ED has a touchscreen, which I'm guessing it's because of, like, the 7D Mark II, I have no idea why they didn't put a touchscreen on that. I'm guessing it's because, I don't know, I guess 7D Mark II is more geared toward professionals, and the weather sealing maybe isn't as good. But it's just such a great feature, especially for macro photography. I feel like just being able to put exactly that point where you want to focus just by touching the screen, it's just so intuitive and easy.
Yeah, I think touchscreens maybe just have a stigma of being like something for casual photographers or like a smartphone kind of thing, which I agree with if you use a touchscreen to replace buttons that you would usually have, like physical buttons you would usually have on the camera. Like I love having tons of buttons and like function buttons on a camera, but some things are just like, there are a few things that just work better on a touchscreen, like yeah, like setting focus points and panning through your pictures that you just took, or zooming in with like pinch and zoom, and I think that is great. And so yeah, and the mirrorless manufacturers, they seem to be a bit more open to using that technology where it's like without any thoughts probably of the pros thinking that's not a real camera anymore.
And having Wi-Fi also, again, I do know that lots of professional photographers think that Wi-Fi is like, I don't really need Wi-Fi, I don't use it. But nowadays, it's just something that, yeah, you don't need it, but if you have it, it's just more convenient. It's one more thing to have that. I mean, for example, I was in the field, and if I want to share something in the field, if I have cell phone signal, I could just wirelessly send the picture from the camera to my cell phone and then share it with everyone live from the field, and that's really powerful. That's awesome.
Well, I think the biggest advantage is to use it as a remote trigger where you actually see through your smartphone what you're looking at. Like you can set up your camera in a tree or so and wait till the animal comes, and you sit down somewhere on a park bench and snap when it is.
You can do that?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Like you can even like even in normal life when you're not shooting animals, like I was on the beach with my girlfriend, and we were like,
where is this going?
Where's this going? Yeah, there's nothing interesting, but unless you're a nerd. But if you have no one to take a photo of you because there's no one else around, so you can just plonk your camera down on like somewhere on a rock. And you take your smartphone and make sure that you're zoomed in, and it's like a nice, like you're basically taking a selfie. So I'm like, I shouldn't say that it's awesome, but then you can take like a real picture of when there's no one to take that from you. I really love those features.
So we have actually.
I think we're running really long again now, so we can't stop talking about gear. Yeah. And I think we should probably close it out at this point, unless. Someone still has something important to share. Okay, then I'm gonna say goodbye, and thanks for sticking it out with us again. And if you have any comments, suggestions, please do post them in the comments or go to Twitter at CritterSnap. And thanks for watching, and thank you guys.
Bye.
Okay.
See you guys.
Bye.